West.
The Chinese virus, the Wuhan virus, Kung flu.
Of the 8 victims tragically killed in the Atlanta mass shooting, 6 were women of Asian descent. They were entrepreneurs, mothers, and so much more. The deadly violence in Atlanta unfolding as anti-Asian hate crime rose nearly 150% in America's biggest cities last year. The spike playing out in disturbing videos.
Go back to whatever Asian country you belong in.
And horrifying violence against Asian Americans like 84-year-old Wichar Ratanapakdi, pushed to his death while on a walk last month in California.
As you had a bad day, you're taking one down. You sing a sad song just to turn it around. You say you don't know, you tell me don't lie. You work at a smile and you go for.
The Atlanta shooting spree that killed 6 Asian women was by no means an isolated incident. Even though it's easy to blame Trump for the rise in racial violence and harassment, Asian Americans have actually suffered violence and scapegoating for many years. In fact, racism and violence against the Asian American community is as old as the U.S. itself.
The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
After Japan bombed Pearl Harbor in World War II, the U.S. forced tens of thousands of Japanese Americans into internment camps, claiming there were spies among them.
Relocation centers were hurriedly built, principally in the western states, to house some 100,000 Issei, Japanese-born aliens, and Nisei, American-born U.S. citizens of Japanese parentage.
Liberal leaders like Joe Biden have also been feeding into the rhetoric, with Cold War talk painting China as a threat to Americans. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Trump was right in taking a tougher approach to China. All of this rhetoric ultimately has a negative impact on the Asian American community in the United States.
So you're not against anti-Asian racism if you believe in and spread anti-China and anti-DPRK U.S. imperialism propaganda? So let's get started in this video. So people always want to claim they're against anti-Asian racism, but believe in everything they see in mainstream media, mainstream capitalist media, anti-China and anti-DPRK propaganda, and they also spread it, and as the media puts it out. You're not against, anti-Asian racism if you support and believe in what the capitalist media has to say about China and the DPRK, because they're all full of lies and propaganda, which means you're spreading literally racism and hate with all their pro-war baiting with China and the DPRK, lies and propaganda about China too. It's clear as day that the United States of imperialism wants war with China and the DPRK, because China in particular threatens their resources, because the United States is the ultimate bully in the world. And the DPRK, look at the history of American imperialism and imperialism in general on countries such as the DPRK. Makes the U.S. think that the resources are threatened, by China, and they launch, pro-war, with China propaganda campaigns about countries which do not follow the U.S.'s orders. The CIA admitted this themselves with how they go about doing propaganda and lies. Anti-Asian hate crimes have been skyrocketing and soaring and have been happening and have not slowed down, even in 2021, this summer, due to America's ongoing anti-Asian U.S. imperialist, news campaigns about China and the DPRK. Please stop spreading and believing in all this anti-Asian propaganda from news outlets, Stop spreading Yami Park's lies about the DPRK. She sold out her own country so she can live a rich, lavish, capitalist pig American lifestyle full of capitalist exploitation. She calls herself a human rights activist, but she is not a human rights activist. She's calling for, U.S. imperialism, and she supports America, one of the biggest human rights violators in the world. She's also a low-key racist, in my opinion, because she's made anti-black remarks in the media lately, saying that Gwen Berry doesn't know American history, like a black woman doesn't know her own history. she also called Gwen Berry spoiled. She lies and has been caught lying about the DPRK because she's a paid U.S. imperialist. She said that the DPRK didn't know about the country Africa, which is a fucking lie.
Like in North Korea, there's no movie, no songs, no books about love story, and the word love doesn't exist.
This is the cover of a Yeonmi video. Sweetie, Yeonmi, I believe this is some sort of porn site.
The CIA is not an intelligence agency, it's a covert action agency. Covert action being overthrowing or supporting foreign governments. Another part of covert action is disinformation. And the American people, in my estimation, are the primary target audience of the agency's disinformation operation.
I think that is the one thing, the raising awareness that what is actually going on, and we constantly talking about slavery happened like hundreds of years ago. So whatever happens, things cannot be worse than what it is now. Like it's impossible. No way on earth things can get worse than what it is right now. I think what the world should do is now really, the Kim Jong-un can never exist by himself. It is enabled by CCP in China, the Communist Party in China. They've been funding this dictatorship. They've been sponsoring it for the last 75 years.
Why?
Because China doesn't want North Korea to be falling into democracy like South Korea is. And North Korea is their buffer zone from the democracy, this movement coming from South Korea and Japan and America. And the US Army base in South Korea said, so China really needs North Korea to defend their border so they don't get the influence from other countries of this freedom and democracy. The thing is that the resemblance I see right now is that like when the Nazis took Jews in the beginning, right, they didn't really stand up for them because, I mean, a lot of them didn't. That's why it went that far. And like right now, there are people being canceled, losing their jobs, and for saying things that is not politically correct. And we think, oh, it's never going to affect me, so I'm going to keep silent and pretend that I'm like one of this politically correct group. It's going to harm us all eventually. No one is going to win in this game other than the final result of the final, that huge government we are going to get. We are like in this thing, no one is going to win. And that's the thing, like in North Korea, nobody is a human except Kim Jong-un. Nobody has the right to be a human. And people saying, oh, how America, all this like democratic socialism they are fighting for is never the same thing with the North Korean things. Like, or no, it's like in America already, like we have to put on this mask and we get fined. And in South Korea, if you don't, you can even go to prison for it right now.
And I view Vietnam, the entire Vietnam War was brought to us, sold to us, by agency disinformation operations. When I say us, I mean the American people.
How does the CIA develop its relationship with the press?
Well, it happens on many levels in many different ways. It could be a director of agency contact with a publisher, or it could be a lower level agency employee with a lower level person, or managing editor, say. Or it could be hiring agency people, and placing them in the news organization. Or it could be giving information to a reporter and winning his goodwill. It could be just a friendship sort of basis. It sort of covers the skein of relationships that you can have, you know, in any social situation.
This relationship demands participation on the part of the press, though, does it not?
Oh, of course.
Well, how does it participate?
It can participate in many ways. It can publish articles that the agency wants published.
Knowingly publish it because the CIA wants it done, or
unknowingly?
Yes.
Well, both. Knowingly most of the time, I would guess. And sometimes the information is passed to a reporter as valid information, a good scoop, if you will, when it's just planted propaganda. The planting of articles is a routine. It's a daily thing that goes on. You have a theme that is developed, the anti-communist ideology. So you constantly are planting articles in newspapers in one country, and you pick it up and replay it in another country. And you use the techniques of white, gray, and black propaganda.
What's that mean?
White propaganda is more or less a U.S. government statement. Everybody recognizes it as such. Gray propaganda is a statement, the sourcing is not quite clear, it's fuzzed up. Black propaganda would be if the agency would put out something, say, from the Communist Party of China and make it appear authentic. One good example of this, during the Cultural Revolution in China, the agency, through its radio transmitters on Taiwan, would come in at the tail end of radio broadcasts, mainland radio broadcasts, and they would pretend that they were just continuations of the program, and they would say, well, the situation is terrible in China. You know, there's a uproar, the upheaval of the Cultural Revolution. Well, there's sort of a playback on this in that the agency, Foreign Broadcast Information Service, was picking up those broadcasts, and they thought this information to be authentic, and they were disseminating it to the intelligence community, and the intelligence community was saying, estimating the situation based on agency disinformation.